Hello, this is Spartan Commander, and this is the 277th Rome Total War Brotherhood game that I've put onto YouTube. This is an unusual battle, and I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, the team I'm in today consists of RTW player SPQR Pablo, who has actually bought the SPQR faction. Just looking at his army here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see that he's only bought 10 infantry. Now that is a very low amount of infantry for the modern day battlefield. I see that he's actually got an infantry general and an eagle unit as well. So there's going to be a lot of morale with his infantry, but 10 infantry is quite a small number. And as you can see, he's got 4 auxiliary archers here. And I think he's got 6 cavalry. Let's have a look at the upgrades on his cavalry. As you can see, he's got 7 upgrades, so that's experience, stripe, gold shield, gold attack. Now I think this army is probably a custom army that he's built, because when you see the factions that we're fighting, that could be the reason why he's bought maybe only 10 infantry and 4 good archers and 6 cavalry. It'll be interesting to see how well that army does during the course of the battle. Our next teammate is Brotherhood member Cal, who has bought the Rome Scipio faction. Once again here, can you see that Cal has bought 16 infantry and only 4 cavalry. This reflects the enemies that we're fighting today. When you see the factions we're up against, you can see why he's bought these this type of army here. It's quite heavy on infantry for him there. As you can see, he's got 7 upgrades on his cavalry, so once again that's 1 experience, stripe, gold shield, gold attack. So I say 16 infantry, 4 cavalry. Should be interesting to see how well that does as the battle unfolds. And our third teammate is another RTW veteran, and that is a Brotherhood member Uther, who has bought the Rome Julio faction. And if you notice here, he's only got 11 infantry. So he's got 11 infantry there, and I think he's got 3 archers, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so he's got only 11 infantry and 3 archers. I see he's got 6 cavalry. Let's have a look at the upgrades on his cavalry. As you can see here, he's got 8 upgrades. So that's 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. So that makes this elite cavalry kind of super cavalry. And it'll be interesting to see how well this really elite, well upgraded cavalry does during the course of the battle. But only 11 infantry. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And our fourth teammate is myself, Spartan Commander, who has unusually bought the Carthage faction. This is another one of my older Carthage armies here. And if you notice, I think I've only got 12 pike units. And I got 3 slingers there. 3 slinger units, the Balearic slingers. They've got reasonably good range, and they got loads and loads of ammunition. They seem to fire all day to me before they run out of ammunition. So they should be interested to see how well they do. And you can see I've got 7 upgrades on my Carthage Sacred Band pikemen. But just like to draw your attention, can you see how short their pikes are in comparison, or their spears are in comparison to the long piked units of Macedon, Seleucid, Pontus, etc. And if you notice, I've got some cavalry here as well, and this is the Sacred Band cavalry. As you can see, they've got pretty good specifications. If you look at their specifications, they're quite tough. And if you notice the upgrades I put on them, I've put 8 upgrades on. So that's 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. So that makes those cavalry quite serious there. So there's our team there. But you wait till you see the other team we're up against. Very unusual team faction wise, and full of really great players. This has got the ingredients to be an absolute epic, and I hope you enjoy it. And here is the other team. We have RTW player Turk. A lot of you will know Turk, a very good 31k player, both with Rome and the Pike factions. And he has bought the Macedon faction here. Now I'd just like to draw your attention here to he has bought 19 pike units. 19 pike units, and just to look at the length of those pikes in comparison to my Sacred Band spears. You can see they look like they're almost twice the length of my Sacred Band spears there. And as I say, there's 19 units there, but no cavalry. I think he's got 1 archer unit. Yeah, he's got 1 archer unit and 19 units there. And each one of those units, I think, has got 121 men in. So that is some kind of infantry. But it'll be interesting to see if having no cavalry, having that many infantry will make up for having no cavalry. But that is quite a formidable pike force there, handled by a really good RTW general. Their second teammate is IOW Sparky. A lot of you would know Sparky. Once again, a very good 31k player, and he has bought the Seleucid faction, and he's got kind of a mixed army here. Say he's got his archers there. Of course, Seleucid archers are only short range, but they do give a bit of cover for his pikes. And then he's got his Silver Shield Legionnaires here, which he'll probably use as Pilot Shield units, is what I'm thinking, because they've got quite a good defense on them. And let's say he's got them in kind of almost semi-testudo. And then he's got his Silver Shield Pikemen there as well. And as I say, once again, look at the length of those pikes there in comparison to, say, the Sacred Band Spears. So there you go, he's got a Silver Shield Pikemen and Legionnaires there in his, for his infantry. Then we move on to the infamous Seleucid Cataphract Cavalry. Just like to draw your attention there to their upgrades. 8 upgrades, that's 2 experience stripes, gold shield, gold attack. And as we get closer, once again, you can see they're armoured from head to toe. And like we said in other battle videos, that's why we call these the tanks of the ancient world. And with those upgrades on, make no mistake, those cavalry can be battle-winning troops. So that is, all in all, a pretty good Seleucid army there. I'm expecting it to do really well during the course of the battle. And then the third teammate is another great RTW player, Tut, Argentina Tut. And as you can see, he's bought the Pontus faction here. Once again, a long-piked faction here. And if you look at the upgrades on those pikes, you see you've got 7 upgrades. There's experience, 1 experience stripe, gold shield, gold attack. And as I say, once again, you can see the length of those pikes. And as I say, we have to fight down those pikes to kill the man on the other end. So that will be a real challenge. You see he's got quite a few pike units there. And he's broken his army up into 2, a larger army and a smaller army. He's also got chariot archers here, but these are his heavy chariots here. If you notice, they got the spikes on the horses and the scythes on the wheels. Extremely strong chariots, but they do run amok. And if we look here, he's got some more of his heavy chariots, and at the back he's got his archer chariots there. If you can see there, these archer chariots haven't got spikes on the wheels or scythes on the wheels at all, but they've just got the bowmen in there. So it'd be interesting to see how well they do. He usually uses these chariot archers very well, does Tut. And as I say, he's got, I think it's 4 heavy chariots and those 2 chariot archers. All in all, that's a pretty good Pontus army. And I know Tut likes fighting with them, so he's going to be pretty good. And their 4th teammate is RTW Belisarius, RTW player Belisarius. A lot of you will know him, and he's bought the Britannia faction. And as you can see here, he's got the a light chariot missile, so that's like an archer chariot unit there. And that's probably form into Canterbury Circle there, so they can do a lot of damage. And also, I'd like to draw your attention here to, I believe he's got something like 13 head hurler units here. If we have a closer look at these head hurler units, now remember these heads that they throw are effective against armour and bring a fear factor, so they lower the morale of enemy troops as well that are being hit by these heads. The real head hurlers used to, you know, back in history, used to dip their heads in lime before throwing. So even if the heads just touch the skin of the enemy, they would cause terrible burns to the enemy. And in this game, these head hurlers can be battle-winning troops because they can cause so many casualties with those heads and lower the morale of troops so easily that they can cause armies to rout. And I see his general is one of the elite infantry of the Brits, and these are chosen swordsmen. And I notice that he's got this unit fully upgraded, so that's 3 experienced stripes, gold shield, gold attack. So that's pretty good there. And I noticed that the chariots that he's chosen to bring are not just the ordinary British chariots, heavy chariots, but he's got the barbarian warlord chariots. Now these are extremely expensive, but most chariots have got 3 hit points on. These guys have got 5 hit points on. So that's 5 hit points for each one of these barbarian warlord chariots, which makes them incredibly difficult to kill and very effective. You know, they stay fighting longer, so they lower the morale of enemy troops as well. So all in all, that's a pretty formidable army, especially if those head hurlers get going against our infantry. Okay, and I've done something different in this battle. I've done a calculation of both armies here. I've tallied up the troops on both sides. Now the enemy team consists of 7,592 troops. So that's 7,592 troops there for their team. And our team have only got 6,029. So already we're outnumbered by about 1,500 troops before the battle even starts. And the combined armies on this battle map is 13,621. Okay, right from the very early stage of the battle here, you can see that Tut is bringing his chariot archers over, and Belisarius is bringing his Britain chariot archers over here as well. And probably they'll form them into a Canterbury circle. There, can you see that they're actually Tut has put his chariot archers into Canterbury circle here. Now this makes these units very difficult to kill for foot archers, but they can cause a lot of catches. Right, let's just pause the game for a second. As I say here, just have a look at this Canterbury circle. Tut has put these two archer units into those, and they kind of go round, and it's kind of like a machine gun. As they go round and round, they're firing as they go round straight at the foot archers, and the foot archers find it very difficult to kill. Can you see the foot archers in that one unit are already down to 64, and the chariots haven't suffered a single casualty from all those archers firing at them. But if you notice, I'm running my Balearic slingers over, and the slingers will take out these chariot archer units, and Tut will know that. So what he'll do, as soon as I get into range, he'll probably pull those chariot archers out of range of my Carthage Balearic slingers there. It'll be interesting to see if that actually does happen. As you can see here, Pablo's firing loads of arrows into those Canterbury Circle chariots, but they won't be causing many casualties at all, and he'll be suffering quite a few. So that's why I'm running my, as I said, my Balearic slingers over there to that flank as fast as I can. As I say, this is a very, very early stage of the battle. You can see we haven't even formed up properly yet. So, let's say this has got the potential to be a really classic battle, and it's nice to see a team playing a 31k battle with no Rome in it. As you can see, they've got Pontus, Seleucid, Britons and Macedon against us. So, as I say, this is an unusual 31k battle, and as I say, hope you enjoy it. Right, if you notice here, I've brought my Carthage slingers over there, and can you see Tut now is pulling his chariot archers back. He knows that those slinger units will take out his chariot archers, unlike the foot archers, so he's pulled them back. If you notice here, can you see that Uther with his Julia army is being extremely aggressive towards the enemy team here, really pushing his army forward. If you notice, Cal with his Scipio army is backing him up as well here. I think they've decided they're not going to be defensive in this battle. It looks like they're going to be very attacking here. Of course, the advantage that the Roman armies have got, if they got loads and loads of pilots they can throw into the enemy, but of course all the enemy needs to do is put a couple of units in open order outside in front of their battle line, and that will soak up the pilots. We see out to our right flank there's a lot of chariots, some heavy chariots as well as those archer units. If you notice, I'm leaving my Balearic slingers out on that flank, so if those chariot archers come near us, I will be able to move them forward and hopefully take those chariot archers out or damage them considerably. Right, now I'm looking at my small spear army here. I've got, as I say, got 12 units. Let's pause the game for a second. 12 units here. You can see both Cal and Uther are looking very aggressive to me, but I've got to decide what I'm going to do with my small Carthage army here against these big pike armies. What am I going to do to help my team the most? Well, what I'm thinking is that, as we saw, Macedon's got 19 pike units. Now Carthage, when it fights these long pike units, it can punch above its weight. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to take my Carthage Sacred Band units and try and pin and hold as many of those Macedon units as I can, hopefully to maybe give a bit of time for my allies to kind of do their thing while I hold, as I say, many of those pike units as I can. There's the head herders. Now, as you can see, there's a mass, I think we counted 13 of them. And you imagine those in a close formation throwing heads into our engaged enemy, into my engaged allies' infantry there. They would cause massive casualties and could even cause a lot of units to rout through that. Let's say both Uther and Cal, as you can see, moving forward all the time. They want to be on the front foot, being very aggressive towards the enemy here. As I say, it's nice to grab the initiative and attack and be aggressive. Maybe the pike generals weren't expecting that, because you know, like as we said before, what the pikes would like is for Rome generals to attack them head on, and maybe they weren't expecting the aggression that both Uther and Cal are showing here. Remember, both Uther and Cal are RTW veterans, and it wouldn't surprise me if they flanked or got round behind them. Right, okay, let's just pause the game to take stock of exactly what's happening. Well, you can see the head hurlers are all at the back there. Let's talk a bit of tactics here. What this team would like to do is they would like, say, Cal Scipio army to attack the forward units of those pikes army there. And then with Cal's army being pinned and held by those pikes, the Brit head hurlers would run forward and then really throw hundreds of armor-piercing heads, effective against armor heads, on those Cal Scipio army, causing loads of casualties and probably causing a lot of his units to rout. So that would be the tactic they would like. They would like us to be pinned fighting their pike units while they bring their head hurlers forward and cause loads of casualties with those effective against armor, fear-bringing heads there. So let's see what Cal and Uther is going to do in respect of that. As I say, what I'm looking to do with my small Carthage, 12 Carthage spearmen there, is to try and hold and pin those Macedon pikemen if I can, for as long as I can. As I said earlier, both Cal and Uther here being extremely aggressive here towards the enemy team. And those that Seleucid general's got a couple of units in Testudo out the front of his main battle line there, so he would soak up a lot of pilers there. There, if you can see there, can you see the pilers flying into the forward units of the enemy team there? If you notice, Uther and Cal at this time are kind of not engaging the pike units head on, but trying more tactical movements than that. Okay, let's just pause the game for a second to take stock of exactly what's happening here. As you can see here, once again, the length of those pikes there, if you looked at those Macedon pikes against the length of my spears, as you can see, I think those pikes look almost twice the length of these Carthage pikemen spears. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Carthage engages. But as I said, Carthage with good upgrades can punch above its weight when fighting these big long pike units. So that should be an interesting little tussle to watch as the battle unfolds. Here you can see the Seleucid general is pulling his army out to our left flank here, and if you notice that Pablo is bringing over his SPQR army over to our left flank there to counter that Seleucid move. Okay, just like to let you know that the Macedon army has got 2,380 men in it, and my Sacred Band army has just got 1,482, including those slingers and cavalry. So as you can see there, that Macedon army with 2,380 men is a lot for me to take on with my pikes, but I think that's the best thing that I can do to help my team out there. Is say if I can pin and hold as many of those Macedon pikemen as I can, and maybe that might give time for my allies to be able to kind of do their thing, if you see what I mean. Right, if you notice, I'm moving my Carthage Sacred Band spearmen forward now to engage the Macedon pikemen. As I say, those Macedon pikemen, they tally up to 2,380, and my entire Carthage army, including let's just pause the game for a second, including the slingers and the cavalry, only comes to 1,482. Right, as you can see here, I'm starting to press forward here. The Macedon general will know that Carthage punches above its weight, so you won't want to mess around too much by sending units off too quickly to other directions on the battlefield. You'll want to see how far my pike units can penetrate his battle line there before he does anything like that. So there's a general overview. As you can see here, Uther facing Pontus there. He'll probably be throwing a lot of pilots in there. And you can see that the B Pontus army that we saw earlier is moving out further to our right, along with those head herders, and you can see that the Seleucid tank cavalry of the ancient world has moved out to our right as well. I notice that Cal's got his cavalry ready to counter any attack, cavalry attack that comes in from the right. But Uther's cavalry is a bit far away, and if the Seleucid general spots that, he may well charge into the flank of Uther's infantry there. Right, let's see what happens next. Right, there you go. Can you see Seleucid tanks of the ancient world charging in, and bang, as that cavalry slices into the side of one of Uther's open order pilot shield units there. Now, if you notice, Uther's cavalry is just arriving to the battle scene now, and he's going to charge in to try and counter that attack. And if you notice, the Pontus general, this is great coordination between Pontus and Seleucid. See the Pontus general moving in with his pike units as well, ready to put the pikes down if Uther decides to counterattack with his cavalry. Nice combination attack there by Pontus and Seleucid. If you notice here, can you see on this right flank, the Pontus general's also thrown in his chariots. Let's just pause the game for a second. That was a nice combination move there. Can you see he's sent in his heavy chariots here on the right flank. Don't forget, these chariots are very powerful, but they are susceptible to running amok, which makes them a menace to both friend and foe alike. But that was a nice hit there by Pontus with his chariots. It'll be interesting to see what happens. If you notice that Uther, I've got my Sacred Band cavalry, and was charging all our cavalry in to try and counter that attack on our right flank. So I think Uther's sending some infantry in there as well. And as you can see, Pontus is advancing at the same time, trying to put pressure on Uther's forward units there. You've got the head herders, you've got the Brit warlord chariots ready to charge in as well. You can see these British head herders throwing loads of heads into my Roman allies there. If you notice, can you see, if you look closely at one of those heads there, can you see where it's actually been cut off? You see the where the neck's been cut there for the head there. But they'll be throwing loads and loads of heads into my allies' infantry there. This right flank could be pivotal. Whoever wins on this right flank could go on to win the battle. And in the centre left here, you can see I'm pushing forward with my Sacred Band into those Macedon pikemen. I'm trying to be as aggressive as I can. I'm trying, as I say, to hold and pin as many of those 19 Macedon pike units as I can. But I am considerably outnumbered by those units. And if you notice that Pablo's formed up a strong defensive formation on my left there. But you can see that the Seleucid, some Seleucid pike units are moving around the side, trying to outflank Pablo there. And you have to be careful because he's got his cavalry there, and there's a Seleucid pike unit quite close to his cavalry. Hope he moves that back soon. But there's a general overview of the battle. As I say, there's 13,621 troops on this battlefield altogether. So that's a massive amount of troops. Here you can see the Brit warlord chariots charging in as well. Don't forget, they've got their 5 hit points. Excellent, really good morale as well. If you notice, I've got my Sacred Band cavalry there bearing the brunt of that attack. At the front, you can see Uther charging his cavalry in as well. You can see that Cal's charging his cavalry in, and a lot of those Brit chariots are starting to rout now. We've got infantry thrown in there as well. And I think a lot of those Britannia warlord chariots now have been routed there. And now if you notice that Cal and Uther are starting to move around the flank, we've managed to rout the chariot hits that we were up against there, and starting to move infantry and cavalry around the flank of the Pontus general. Trying to kill some of the head herders as well. Some of the head herder units, can you see, we're a little bit isolated here, and we've managed to chase them down with cavalry, and we'll kill as many of them as we can. Right, let's just pause the game for a second to take stock of exactly what's happening. As you can see, both Cal and Uther on this right flank, don't forget they've been aggressive right from the start of the battle. They're starting to move around the right. We've routed, I think, all the Pontus chariots and all the Britannia heavy warlord chariots as well. And as they move around right, you can see that these head herders have been alt attacked. They've got their swords out, not using their heads, so they're ready to fight the Julii cavalry there. There's lots of pilots and still some heads being thrown as well, but I say it's a nice aggressive flanking attack there by Uther and Cal. Plus, if you notice that Uther and Cal are pinning the front pike units. Remember what we said, we don't like to attack pikes head on unless we've got a plan. So what they're doing there, they're pinning these forward units so they can get units around the flank and side there. But as I say, you can see the heads being thrown in there. there. If you were up to a closer look at the heads that have been thrown, and remember those heads are effective against armor and do cause fear to enemy troops as they hit them, so they lower the morale. If you notice here, I've got a couple of Pontus units attacking my Carthage units, as well as those 19 or so Macedon pike units there as well. So the odds against my Carthage army has got a little bit higher there. So as I say, I'm being very aggressive with my Carthage units there. As I say, they do often punch above their weights, and I'm trying to, as I say, pin and hold as many of those Macedon pike units as I can, and in the hope that that will help my allies a bit with what they're going to do. Over on our left flank here, can you see that SPQR Pablo has formed a defensive formation with his SPQR infantry against those Seleucid pikemen that we're trying to flank. Remember, the Seleucid cataphract cavalry are out there as well. So that's a nice little bit of defensive formation there by Pablo, protecting our left flank. So I say there's a general overview of the battle at the moment, and as you can see, we are progressing on this right flank. Say making inroads in this right flank if we can. So I got my Sacred Band cavalry there as well. I'd like to get in behind some of those engaged enemy pikemen and to smash in to try and to rout them by hitting them from behind. You notice here, can you see Uther charging in some cavalry units, but unfortunately the Macedon general turned his pikes just before Uther's cavalry hit, and I think Uther's lost quite a few on pikes. You notice Aaron charging my Sacred Band in as well, but I've noticed that the pike general's turned his pikes onto my cavalry as well. Can you see Pablo sending his SBQR cavalry in there? Bang, as that cavalry hits straight into the back, because I think that Macedon unit had turned to face my cavalry, so he charged his cavalry into the rear of that unit. Nice little hit. And there's a Seleucid tank cavalry charging into the flank of one of Pablo's infantry units, and bang, as that cavalry hits. And if you notice that Pablo's lined his cavalry up, I'm thinking he's probably going to do a counter-attack there. There you go. Can you see he's just about going to send his SBQR cavalry in a counter-attack? But as you see, the Seleucid generals brought pike units here trying to flank our left flank here, but because of Pablo's defensive formation, he's holding really well on that left flank. I say in the left centre here, a lot of my Carthage units are starting to rout. I think they've done well for how long they've been fighting, but against all those pikemen there, I think they just did as good as could be expected there. If you notice over in our right centre, you can see that Uther is still combating those Pontus units there. So he's doing quite well. I'd say he's pinning and holding those pike units, stopping them to be moved anywhere else on the battlefield, probably over to the left flank, which is quite under threat for them. So that's a nice pin and hold move there by Uther. And if you notice that Cal's got the bulk of his army on this right flank, really fiercely attacking those pike units there. But can you see there's some rallied Pontus units coming from the rear? They've rallied and they're going to come and probably attack from the rear. You say we got infantry units and cavalry units around the rear of the enemy there. So I say there's a general overview of the battle as it stands at this time. Right, if you notice there, can you see that Pablo's sending his cavalry in? And luckily, I'm glad that he didn't send them right through, because I think those Macedon pikes were down, ready to receive that cavalry charge. So I'm glad he didn't charge that cavalry in, because he would have lost a heck of a lot of cavalry if he'd have actually done that. But if you notice now, most of my Sacred Band Carthage spearmen have now been routed. So our left centre is looking a little bit exposed there. If you notice, Pablo's thrown a unit over there to try and plug that gap. Once again, can you see the Seleucid tank cavalry charging in, and bang, as that cavalry hits, routing one of Pablo's SBQR units. But if you notice, Pablo's counter-attacked. Pablo's counter-attack there with his cavalry, and that is a real tussle going on there. Real tussle. But remember that Seleucid cavalry, if alt-attacked, is using those effective against armour maces. And I think I can see that they have been alt-attacked, so a lot of Pablo's SBQR cavalry has been routed there, but he's throwing infantry as well. Let's just pause the game for a second. Let's say the Seleucid general here is making a really aggressive move on Pablo's SBQR infantry. I noticed that we've got a lot of missile troops still shooting arrows into the enemy. You see there's a big clump of Macedon pikemen there, probably ready to pull through our centre. I've just charged a couple of battle damaged cavalry units into the rear of these engaged Macedon pikemen there, and we managed to rout a couple of those units. But as you can see here over on our right, both Cal and Uther, like they've been right from the beginning of the game, extremely aggressive, attacking these Pontus and some Macedon pikemen that's been brought over as well. But if you notice, there's some rallied Pontus pikemen coming in behind Cal's attacking infantry. Those Pontus units have been routed, but they've managed to rally and they've come back now. And remember what we've said about this in the past, that very often units that have rallied and come back can kind of bite you in the backside in the course of the battle. Right, can you see that Pablo's still using his SBQR cavalry extremely aggressively here. But as you can see, there's a big clump of Macedon pikemen aided by those Seleucid cavalry in our centre there that can be now moved tactically. My guess is over to the flank there to try and to stop the progress that our team are making on that right flank. Right, can you notice that Pablo's charging his cavalry in again? Has routed that Seleucid unit that he just wanted to hit. That was a nice little hit there. Must have seen that that unit was very weak and realised that a cavalry charge would probably just rout it there. Right, if you notice now that Uther's moving units over from the right over to the centre now to try and take on that clump of Macedon pikemen that are there. But there's already some Seleucid cataphract cavalry there engaging Uther's infantry as he's moving forward. Let's say if you notice that Cal here is being attacked by those rallied Pontus pikemen, and he's engaged with those, and there's another rallied unit coming. Right, can you see that Uther is attacking those Macedon units there? But can you see those chariots there coming in? Those Pontus chariots. I think they've been auto-attacked, and bang! They're bringing a fear factor and their attack there onto Uther's units. If you notice that Pablo's used his SBQR cavalry to hit those Macedon pikemen as well. So that attack was kind of a draw there, because the Pontus pikemen, if you noticed, routed most of Uther's infantry, but Pablo's cavalry routed most of the Macedon infantry that was there. So if you look, a lot of Macedon infantry were routed as well as Uther's infantry was routed there. So it's kind of almost a draw there with those hits. But I remember thinking at the time when I saw Uther's cavalry routed, I thought, whoa, and now that those chariots probably going to go into the back of Cal's engaged infantry there, and if they cause a mass rout there, then basically the battle could be over. But Cal's army is holding really well there, bearing in mind that they're engaged with long pikemen at the front and getting hit from chariots in the rear. Right, let's just pause the game for a second. As you can see here, these chariots now, they're the archer chariots, but they've been auto-attacked because they still bring a fear factor to the enemy troops there. And if Cal's army, those units start to mass rout, then the battle will be over and we will probably have lost. I've still got my Carthage general left, but I think he's only got about 8 men in his unit. And as I say there, the battle is kind of almost on a knife edge. Yes, Pablo's still got his cavalry there, but his infantry is still engaged with Seleucid pikemen. And as I say, those chariots have just gone into the rear of Cal's engaged infantry. Right, just going to pause the game for a second, just to ask you a tactical question here. If you were Pablo and you had those cavalry, what do you think you would do with them at this stage of the battlefield? Do you think you'd take them back over to that left flank, maybe after you've taken out these chariots? Take those chariots and then maybe take it back over to the left flank to get rid of those archers and those pikemen that your men are facing? What do you think you would do with that cavalry? That might be quite a good idea, to take them back over there. Maybe take them through there, go right round the back of the enemy troops. What do you think you would do with that cavalry? Well, let's see what Pablo decides to do. As you can see, he's just taken out the last of those chariot units. Now, let's see what he's going to do with that cavalry. I think a lot of veterans would have probably spotted this already. He's going to take his cavalry right round the back of those engaged Pontus pikemen. And what do you think he's going to do now? Take him right round the back.
Your allies are leaderless.
Bang! Straight into the back of those engaged Pontus pikemen. Now, new players watching this, that's absolutely great. Remember, hitting the rear of engaged troops is just the way to do it, and Pablo just showed you that with those cavalry. Nice hit there. Right, let's just pause the game for a second to take stock and have a look at how intense this battle was. Remember, over on this right flank, can you see those chariot wheels in the snow? Here, that was how intense the first part of the battle was. Do you remember over on this right flank here where we had the cavalry and chariots all fighting? Very, very intense part of the battlefield here, and like we said, whoever won on that right flank would probably go on to win the battle. And I think it's because Cal and Uther did that. I think they did actually manage to do that. You can see some more intense fighting here all the way along the battle line here. You can see how intense the fighting was for this 4v4 battle. And as I say, there was 13,621 troops in total on this battlefield, so that's a lot of troops there. You can see that Pablo still got a lot of his infantry left. Let's continue here. And there we go. It looks like our team has managed to go on and win this battle.
You have won the battle by the slimmest of margins.
You can see one of Tut's chariots has run amok over there. Remember, if that touches friend or foe alike, that unit will kill, as I say, both friend and foe alike. Okay, first thing I'd like to say is really well played to everybody in the game. As you can see here, it was only a close victory. It was very, very close. There, I'd like to say really well done to Pablo. Can you see SPQR Pablo got over 2,000 kills, 2,182 kills. So really well done to Pablo. Both Uther and Cal, if you look at their kills too, both really good kills for them as well. I'm afraid my army didn't get that many kills facing those pikemen, but I hope I did what I wanted to do, which was to hold and pin as many as I could, which hopefully helped my allies. Well done to Belisarius, well done to Tut Mosul. Well done to IOW Sparky, and well done to Turk. Some nice kills and some nice moves there by you guys. Really well done. Let's say it was nice to see a 31k battle with a team that decided not to bring Rome. They just bought other factions there. So really well done to you guys. And as I say, your army totaled 7,592. So that's a heck of an army against our 6,029. So as Spartan Commander, so I hope you enjoyed this close battle. I look forward to seeing you soon, and bye for now.